Welcome to REST, which stands for Resiliency and Empowerment Seminar today. I am your host, Susan Gans, and I'm the founder of Gans Strategic Solutions, where we operate at the intersection of business and human behavior. This show is about highlighting the journeys of small, mid-sized business owners, as well as leaders of nonprofits. We hear about the journeys of those leaders, as well as their organizations, and very importantly, how they're being resilient today in these very challenging times. I am excited today to welcome our guest, Jeff Weiner. A bit about Jeff. He is the CEO of HKM Associates, and what he does is really a business doctor of sorts, where he does MRIs and CAT scans on insurance policies. He is an expert in health and life insurance, estate planning, and long-term care. And he shows people what they don't know, they don't know, and gives them an opportunity to learn from what they could possibly save and more information about their insurance. And he's been doing this a very long time, very accomplished. He's very charitably oriented. He is involved in a number of fundraisers and charities, including the Pink Tie Foundation, We Care Inc., Stupid Cancer, Sunrise Association, the Lee and Aidan McMahon Family Foundation, Variety Children's Learning Center, and Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, where he was the 2017 Long Island Man of the Year. In 2008, just in case Jeff wasn't busy enough, he decided to found the Roundtable Networking Group, which now boasts over 250 member companies. And the group features many of the largest and fastest growing companies and executives, not only on Long Island, but across the country. And he's just gone global as well. He holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in political science from SUNY Albany and a paralegal certificate in benefits and pensions from Adelphi University. And he's also an avid golfer. So welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thank you very much.
So let's get into it. Tell us how you got into the world of insurance and being that business insurance doctor.
So how I got into insurance is kind of like a fluke type of situation. Up until first semester senior year of college, I was going to be an attorney. Everything I did was law school, actually applied to law school, the whole thing. And then it was first semester senior year of college at Albany. And
Yes.
I decided, nah, I don't think I want to go to school for 3 more years. My mother was not too happy with that decision because she always knew I was going to be an attorney. And Adelphi happened to be at my school, and it said what would it be like to go to be an attorney without going to law school. So I was like, okay,
I'm in.
delays my decision. What the heck? So I came home and went to Adelphi, and coincidentally became a certified paralegal in employee benefits and pensions. And because that was the most interesting topic of the 4 or 5 choices that I had. And, looked around for paralegal jobs and said, well, they do all the work and they get paid no money. So nah, it's not going to work. And was working at the time for a marketing research company, doing those annoying phone survey things. So
Yes.
getting on the phones was, talking to people I didn't know was like, yeah, that's no big deal. And I was having a lot of fun doing it. And I said to them, offer me a full-time job and I'll just do that. And they're like, well, we don't have enough hours. So I said, okay. So I sat down literally with the New York Times and said, accounting, bookkeeping, came across financial services and says, sales help wanted, no experience necessary, will pay to train. I was 21 years old, living at home, putting gas in my 73 Mustang and just hanging out. So I said, all right, fine. So I went into the office, into the agency, and they were like, it's life and health insurance. And I was like, oh God, do I want to sell life and health insurance? Not exactly what I was planning for myself. But took the job because I didn't have another full-time job. And, went to work. And first day I come in there and I'm wearing my little suit and all. Little did I know the office was somewhat casual, and I'm wearing this like three-piece suit kind of thing. And the guy goes, "Why are you so dressed up?" And I was like, it's my first day at a real job. So he said, "All right, so here's how it works." He goes, "You have to make phone calls to people you don't know." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's easy." And they handed me a stack of what back then was they were Dun and Bradstreet business cards, and it had the name of the company, the contact information, the person's name to call, how many employees, all the pertinent information. And they gave me a little, speech to use, and
Yeah.
and I started making phone calls. And the manager said to me, "Look, if they're interested at all, make an appointment." I was like, "Okay, I can do that. Making phone calls is no big deal." So I start making the phone calls, and I'm starting to set up appointments, and he's checking in with me throughout the day. And the end of the day comes, and he said, "So how'd you do?" I said, "Well, I'm pretty well booked." And he goes, "Well, what do you mean you're pretty well booked?" I said, "Well, and you have to track the phone calls and stuff like that.
Sure.
I said, "I made 327 phone calls. I set up 27 appointments." And the guy's like, "You set up what?" I said, 27 appointments. I said, "What? Every hour on the hour for like 2 weeks, I set up appointments." And he goes, "How did you do that?" And I was like, "Well, you told me if they were interested, make an appointment." So that's what I did. Now, when push comes to shove and we actually went on these appointments, half the people really didn't want to see me. We got doors slammed in our face and like, "What are you talking about? I didn't want to see you." I just said yes just to get you off the phone, kind of thing. But one of them ended up being this law firm. And the office manager was like a grandma lady. And I was this 21-year-old kid. And I guess she looked at me like her grandson. And when I started talking to her and when I went in the office, we went in on health insurance, and then we spun off and did life insurance. Um, and she liked me. And I don't even know that I saved her that much money, but she liked me, you know. And she told the partner, "Yeah, he could save us a lot of money, and he's going to give us better service, and so we should switch to him." So the partner's like, "Yeah, okay." And that was my first client. And then I went back to the office with the manager, or to meet with the manager, and I said, "All right, so I did the health insurance. I know you don't have anything to do with the health insurance." And I said, he goes, "Ask him about a buy-sell agreement." And I was like, "Okay." Now I'm in the business a month, and I start reading, because there is no internet, there is no computers. I had a rate book that was the size of a phone book, and in the back of the rate book it had like common terms, and I'm like thumbing through this book trying to, and it says buy sell agreement, and so I read up what the heck it is, because I had no idea what it was. I had never even written an application, you know, because I had no rich friends, I had no rich relatives. My father bought a small policy, my brother bought a small policy, my sister bought a small policy, and that was the extent of friends and family, because all my friends and family were 21-year-old guys looking for jobs, so they had no money. So, I went back the next day to complete all the stuff for the health insurance, and I said to the partner, I said, "Listen, when was the last time you updated your buy-sell agreement?" And he goes, "I think it's been a while, but we have the agreement. Would you like to get a copy of the agreement to review it?" And I said, "Yeah, we have an attorney on staff, so sure." And I bring back the agreement to the office, and the agreement says he should have updated it like 5 years ago. So he should have bought more insurance. So I went back to him and I said, "Listen, according to the agreement, you should have updated this 5 years ago. So it's 5 years. You should buy a bigger policy." So I ran some numbers for him, and he bought it, and which was great and not so great, because it was great because I made this huge sale. It was like a $10,000 commission back in 1981. So I was like, "Oh, this is great." And I maxed out they had a financing contract. I maxed out my contract for like a year, which was great because I knew I was getting $2,000 a month, which, for a 21-year-old kid living at home, plus I was making like $1,000 a month on the health insurance. So I was living like a king, making $3,600 a month, you know. And I went, to the, and I submitted the cases and everything got approved. And then I was like, God, this is easy. I said, I went on a bunch of appointments. I closed the deal. I'm making like $3,000 a month. I don't have to really work hard.
Hmm.
And I went from rookie of the year 8 months later to you can either do a ton of business to catch up on all the commissions you lost or go straight commission. And at the time I was dating my girlfriend, who then ultimately became my fiance and my wife. And I was like, what do you think? She said, you know what? Sink or swim, go for the commission thing. And I said, okay. So I said, all right, I'm going straight commission, which meant I had to work. About a month later, they hired a new manager. The manager had retired, and they hired this new manager. And I was like, all right, forget it. He's throwing me out because I've done no business in the year other than, a couple of small little policies. And he kind of saved my career before my career started, or before it tanked. And he said, look, if you need me to kick you in the ass, I'll kick you in the ass. If you need me to hold your hand, I'll hold your hand. But you got to decide, you got to work. And I was like, okay. So I made the decision that I needed to work. And actually, my wife was the one, she was in HR and she worked out in Bohemia. And Bohemia then was factories and small businesses and mom and pop businesses. And she said to me, you know what? I'm the head of HR. Nobody ever walks in the door. You're tired of the phones. Why don't you come out and we'll have lunch and go knock on doors? He goes, you're good at talking to people. So, and that's what I did. And I started cold canvassing and just knocking on doors. I came up with a little, spiel and, and took off and I started writing some small businesses, some health insurance, some life insurance. And then I said, this is pretty good. I guess I'll stick around because there's nothing better. And I said, when something better comes along, I'll figure it out. And 39 years later, I'm doing the same thing.
That's amazing. So from thinking you're going to law school to using your skills of being adept on the phone to making a lifelong career out of reaching out to people and supporting them in their success, which is it's pretty incredible.
Thank you.
So there must have been, you talked about your new manager that came in early on. There must have been other mentors and sponsors along the way in your career. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So when I first started the insurance company, my agency was in, because I had my own agency, because I always was an entrepreneurial kind of guy. I mean, I used to, during the gas crisis, I'd buy donuts and coffee and sell them on the gas line. I was always an entrepreneur. So I said, well, I don't want to call myself, agent of Phoenix Mutual or MetLife or Guardian. They said, it's all up, come up with a DBA. So originally it was JW Planning, and then HKM Associates came from Helene, Kelsey, Megan. It's my wife and my two kids.
Ah,
That's where HKM Associates comes from. Um, so when I first started, the insurance agency had Western Bell as a kind of a house account. So, which was the pre-Verizon company. So the older guys used to go into the buildings and they bought payroll deduction life insurance. And it was like a bakery. It's like the life insurance man's here. If you want to go buy life insurance, come in to see him and, just sign some forms, and it was like the craziest thing I ever saw. But one of the guys that was doing it was an older guy, but he was really doing like 3 or 4 times better than everybody else there. And he saw me and said, I don't want to run around like crazy anymore. And you're a kid and you willing to work. So why don't you kind of come with me on some of these calls and see what you can do? And that kind of got me started. And I started writing a lot of business, but I started thinking about it when I started talking with these guys, because these guys all made a pretty good amount of money. But this guy kind of had the mentality of, I'm not going to show them this policy. They can't afford this. And I started thinking about it and started talking to them and realizing how much they were making. And they were putting money in like the credit union, half these guys didn't even have checkbooks. It was the funniest mentality, because everything was payroll deduction. So if you can convince them, they'd give you $500 a month in the blink of an eye, as long as it was payroll deduction. They didn't have to write out a check. So, so I started meeting with these guys and showing them much bigger policies. And so I said to this guy, I said, I'm going to show them this policy. He goes, they can't afford that. I was like, have you ever asked them for that? And I was like, goes, no, this is what the kind of the amount we always recommend. And I was like, well, my thinking is, if I show them double that, they're going to buy that or somewhat less. I still policies that he was showing, and we wrote a lot more business. And he was, because he doesn't have to do anything. He just kind of let me, here's the pass, go in, go see all these people and start writing business. And and I did, and I started writing a lot of business and a lot of commissions, and picking up a lot of clients. And then we talked to them about other stuff, their retirement, and their pension plan, and their group term insurance, because a lot of these guys had group term, and they had 3 and 4 and 5 times salary. And then when I said to them, well, how much are you paying for that? Oh, I don't know, but it comes out of my paycheck. And then we got a copy of the policy, and it was 5-year term. So every 5 years it was going up. I said, yeah, it's cheap now if you're 25 or 30. But look what happens when you turn 45, 50, 55, 60. And then, so I created this chart which had what term is going to cost you between this age and this age. And then I'd bring them to the meetings, and all these people would be like, oh, so group term is no bargain. But their mentality was, I'm going to work here for 30 years, and who cares? And so took a little convincing, but ultimately a lot of them ended up dropping the group term and buying life insurance through me.
So really what you were doing was stretching people to think more broadly and to think about, their worth and protecting their worth. And then also showing them that just don't be under the assumption, first of all, that you're getting a better deal without analyzing it. And don't be under the assumption either that you're going to be in a place for 30 years, especially these days.
Yeah.
People don't stay at companies.
Correct. And most people, like their whole mentality was put money into the credit union. So when I'd ask them for like $300 a month when they were used to spending $100 a month, they'd be like, I can't afford that. And I'd say, so what are you putting in the credit union? Oh, I'm putting $750 a month into the credit union. I said, so can you take some of that $750 and put it towards this? Oh yeah, I could do that. It was kind of just thinking outside the box, creating, disturbing them enough where they had the need, but creating the, understanding and educating them and saying, you know what, instead of putting it here, you can put it here, and you're going to be a lot better off. And so, that's kind of how I always felt, with working with people, is try to, come up with a solution to their problem.
So that brings me to another question, which is about how is you have a very full and busy life in your day job. How do you make time for all the charities that you're involved in? Where is that coming from?
I mean, I've been doing charity work since I was a kid. I mean, I did work in high school. I always worked with, local charities. In Albany, I helped run a 24-hour student-run telethon, like a Jerry Lewis telethon. We did this.
Yes.
We did it in Albany. We had the students perform. Some were really talented people, and some were really bad but great, comedy acts and whatever. And we actually put together a 24-hour telethon to raise money for like local orphanages, and so doing good for nonprofits is it's kind of, just in my DNA. And, and I've always been doing it. I was the fundraising coordinator for Nassau County Special Olympics for a couple of years. It was a volunteer job. And then, started doing a little bit more. And one of my clients asked me to get involved with this charity golf outing. And I always had good contacts for stuff. raffle prizes, that kind of stuff. So I said, sure, I can help out. I can get you some restaurant gift certificates. So I started, going around to stores with a letter, because to me, I talk to people I don't know when I first started my career about doing insurance. Going around to a store and asking for a $50 gift certificate, it's like,
That's like nothing to you.
yeah, that's like breathing to me. I mean, that's, like I can spend a day soliciting raffle prizes and pick up 40 or 50 gift certificates in the blink of an eye. So I was always doing that. And then in 2017, it kind of skyrocketed. I was nominated by one of my clients for this competition called Man Woman of the Year with leukemia lymphoma. So it's a national competition. Each state does their own, their own competition. So I went to them and I said, well, what is this competition? And they said, it's 4 businessmen, 4 businesswomen, 10 weeks, raise the most money. And I was like, okay, that's cool. So I went back to my networking group and another group that I'm involved in. And I said, all right, so they want me to raise a lot of money. I need your guys' help. Nobody's writing a $50,000 check. So we got to do a lot of events inexpensively. I found a bunch of places that would donate their place for free, so it wouldn't cost me anything to do the events. And I formed a committee of about 25 people. And I said, guys, we got to come up with a number. They're saying 50,000 is really the minimum they want us to do. And they were like, wait, it's for your daughter. And my daughter's a stage 4 Hodgkin's cancer survivor. I said, it's for your daughter. Your daughter's running the campaign because she's just like me. Now call him back and ask him what's the most anybody's ever raised in the history of the event in New York. And I said, okay. So I called him back. I said, all right, so what's the record? They said, the record is $167,000 in 10 weeks. So I said, okay. I went back to the committee. And I said, all right, guys, record's 167. They said, okay. So our goal's $200,000, right? And I was like, are you out of your mind? I was like, $200,000 in 10 weeks. And we ended up doing 5 events because people on my committee, everybody took charge of an event. There was a guy that rode motorcycles, so he organized the motorcycle ride. There was a guy that was connected to this place called Pole Position, which is basically go-kart racing for adults. So he took that event. I ran the casino night and the cocktail party. And then one of the guys who's a good friend of mine from Allstate, well, he does motorcycle insurance and car insurance, whatever. He said, all right, I'll do a barbecue and I'll sponsor the barbecue. And so then we had 5 events so that when I went around for sponsorships to the bigger companies that had budgets, like Capital One and Rifkin Radler and big accounting firms and banks and things like that, I said, all right, so what do you get for $5,000? If you sponsor a charity? They said, well, we get a table at the event, we get some tickets, and we get a banner and all that stuff. I said, all right, so here's my way. Give me $5,000. I'll give you 5 sponsorships, and I'll give you 60 tickets, 12 tickets to every event, because it didn't cost me anything for the events, so I can give away as many tickets as I want. So I said, bring your clients, bring your 8 clients. You're going to be the sponsor. You're going to get to talk, and you're going to meet, hopefully, like 100 people at every event. And that's what we did. And we got a lot of sponsors, and we set the record, and we raised $219,000 in 10 weeks.
Awesome. That's amazing.
And so because we had so much fun doing this craziness, we contacted, we got connected to a place called Appliance World, which is an appliance store in Huntington, Long Island. This guy is the greatest guy ever. He donates space for nonprofits.
Yes.
So I said, okay, so I have this nonprofit. He goes, all right, here's the dates that are available. Like, I didn't know him from a hole in a wall. And he's like, here's the dates I have. I said, what's the cost of the event? He goes, well, you just have to pay my staff and that's it. And I said, what do we have to do? They said, you do everything. So we bring in chefs, we bring in restaurants, we go get raffles. And we started 3 years ago doing quarterly cocktail parties, and we pick a different local charity that we donated to, and the only thing they have to do is wrap the prizes. Because when I ran for Man of the Year, my wife, my daughter, and her friend wrapped over 300 baskets.
Wow.
So the deal was, we'll help you. My daughter and my wife said they'll help me with the events, but they're never wrapping another raffle prize ever again. So, so that's what we do, and we've been doing that, and we get about 120, 130 people to a party. We charge $55 for tickets because our team name when we did the leukemia and lymphoma was Five and Alive was the name. We had to come up with a team name, so our team name was Five and Alive because my daughter was 5 years cancer free at the time. So we bought the domain name, and so it's now Five and Alive presents blah blah blah, and so we charge $55 for tickets, or $500 for sponsorships, or $1,000 gets you like the exclusive sponsorship. And we get a bunch of sponsors, and we get a bunch of people, and we raise $10,000 or $15,000 at these parties, and we give it to local charities that the money really makes a difference.
That's amazing. Just from your high school days to the telethon to ratcheting it up a notch by leveraging your network. And
Yeah, and my daughter, in fact, this year, one of her friends was running because the competition is actually going on as we speak. It actually ends tomorrow. So I said to her, look, I don't have time to run around and do stuff. And since there's no events, everything's virtual, you know, she said, all right, well, I still want to raise $5,000, and I said, all right, so send me your link and let's see what we can do. And I sent it out to the group, and actually she just texted me about 5 minutes ago because the competition ends tomorrow. She just passed $5,000.
awesome.
In 10 weeks during a pandemic, she was able to, with no events, with her and I just making phone calls and sending out emails, raise $5,000.
That's tremendous.
Yeah,
Congratulations to you and her.
yeah, and that's her. I mean, she's like me, she's actually better than me because she walked into when I was running, she walked into Home Depot and got them to give her gift cards, and Starbucks and walked out with baskets. I mean, stuff that you're supposed to get corporate approvals, and not my daughter. Not my daughter.
It sounds like she shares the story authentically, and it
She does.
resonates.
She does.
And
And she is a huge advocate for cancer and cancer survivors. She's part of a survivor group where she still works with kids that come into Columbia where she was treated, and works, talks to them as a, kind of a mentor of been there, done that. So she gets calls from people from all over the country, and, talks them through the process.
it's tremendous. That's what a great thing to have
Yeah,
her be
both,
able.
yeah, both of my kids are like that. I mean, my younger daughter is in the city, so it's a little more challenging for her, but she gets involved with the events and she helps me. It's a family thing.
Yes. So that really brings me to the theme of resiliency, because you have your daughter who's overcome stage 4 cancer and thrived, to you who lives up to these challenges. So what would you say to people about resiliency and how to bounce back?
I think, my perspective was always pretty good. But when she was treated, we went to this conference, this organization that you had mentioned called Stupid Cancer. So what Stupid Cancer does, it's for young adults who have cancer, 21 to 35-year-olds. So my daughter was 21 when she was diagnosed. And we went, and the Columbia said, you should go out, go to their meetings and stuff. And we're like, okay. So we went online, and they said, we're having a meeting in Nevada, Las Vegas. And if you do some fundraising, we reimburse you for flights and hotels and whatever. And so I was like, oh, okay, that's easy. So we started an email campaign about 3 months before we were supposed to go, and we raised like $12,000. Now, I had no idea if that was good or bad. Apparently, it was the most anybody's raised, because the entire nation of the organization raised $100,000, and we raised
Wow.
12 of it. So we went out to this conference, and the first day, the woman the guy that started it was a concert pianist at Binghamton, signed to play Carnegie Hall, had a bad headache. Make a long story short, ended up stage 3 brain cancer, losing the use of his hand, career over before it started this foundation. And so he kicks it off. Actually, he brings out somebody to kick it off. She goes, yeah, I don't see what the big deal about my situation is. He said, my parents waited 9 years to have me. I was born with cancer. 8 years later, got a second cancer. 9 years later, cancer. 30 was great. And we met, which was amazing to me. There were 550 kids at this conference. At the end of the first day, my daughter and I met back in the room, and she was pretty sick. And we were like, what the heck are we doing here? Yours was like a year and chemo. Half the people in the room were told, go home. There's nothing more we can do for you. So when I kind of looked at it in perspective, and I was like, you know what? And that's kind of the way I kind of live my life. Whatever situation you have, everybody's got stuff. There's always worse. No matter what the situation is, there's always worse. I have a good friend of mine whose son is severely autistic. And we were talking about this perspective thing probably about a year ago, and resilience and bouncing back and all that kind of stuff. And he said to me, I got a new perspective recently. And I was like, what do you mean you got a new perspective? I mean, your son's never getting better. I mean, he's severely autistic. It's forever. And he said, yeah, I know. He goes, you know, I run the parents group for the school. And I was like, yeah. He said, well, there's a new kid that joined the school who's the same age as my son. And I said, okay. And I was talking with her after the meeting saying, you know, I'm really having trouble with my son. He's 16. He doesn't want to take his medications. He's very rambunctious. And he said to her, are you having trouble with your son? He goes, no, not really. And she goes, really? He goes, and he's like, is he athletic? Does he like sports? Oh, yeah. He goes, yeah, I just put it into his feeding tube and it's no problem at all. You know, and it's like, hello. So, so as bad as stuff is, I mean, I have a daughter that had cancer. I have a wife that had cancer. You know what? I'm very blessed. I got, 2 great kids, a great wife, a great business. So to me, it doesn't matter what your situation is. There's always worse. Put it in proper perspective and you'll be fine. I try not to stress about things I can't control, and in my business, I went to a seminar probably 25 years ago. And the guy had a saying, which I kind of live by. And it says, some will, some won't, so what, next. And that kind of, sums up, you know what, you're going to close some deals, you're going to have stuff that's going to happen. You know what, there's nothing you could do about it. You got to deal with it, kind of move on.
Absolutely. So with that, Jeff, what would you like people to remember about our conversation today?
I think the best thing, to remember is do the right thing for people. It'll come back to you. Don't always look to, close the deal or, make the sale or, do the right thing, help others first. I mean, my whole networking group is based on that whole premise. And even during the pandemic, my networking group has grown by 25% in the middle of the pandemic. Because now my group is now national and as of 2 weeks ago, international. And the group was formed with the idea of, let me help businesses grow their business, and if and when they have an opportunity to grow my business, they'll give me the opportunity to provide help for them. but it was always the give versus get mentality. Like my charities, my group is the same way, and my group started, you know, really officially about 7 years ago. I mean, I started playing around with it about 10 or 11 years ago, but we actually formed the group and did it about 7 years ago. And from 12 companies and no business, the group is now 275 companies. We've done over $12 million of business together that I'm aware of. And more importantly, we've raised over $1 million in 6 years.
It's tremendous. And Jeff, how can people find you?
Best way to reach me is my cell phone, because like when I meet with clients and we do their health insurance benefits, I give out my cell phone to every single employee. So every single group, every single client, and every single employee of every one of my clients has my cell phone number. So that's always the best number, because it goes on at 7 in the morning, goes off at 12 o'clock at night, 7 days a week. The number is 516-316-1255.
And are there ways that you want people to find you on the web as well?
Yeah, they can certainly go on the website, and even my website, you know, talks as LLS and my charities and my business and my philosophy and the give versus get mentality. It's www.hkmassociates.com is my website.
So I'm going to repeat that. So Jeff can be found via his cell phone at 516-316-1255, or you can find out more information on his website, www.hkmassociates.com. Jeff, it's been a wonderful conversation today, really inspiring. I didn't know all the backgrounds about the charity and all of the things around your career. So as Jeff says, to do the right thing by people, put people first, that go giving mentality, and that goes a long way. And to our audience as well, until the next conversation.